Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Welcome back to Battles of American Civil War with your host, Bang and Dang, and we are moving into March 1862 with another A battle coming off of an A battle last week of Fort Donelson. Oh, no, my bad. It was Valverde and Island Number 10. And Valverde was the first Confederate win since December of 1861, but that's going to be short-lived because they ain't winning another one in the foreseeable future here. We got the Battle of Pea Ridge.
Confederate one can hardly call it a win.
Yeah, it wasn't even a win. Pea Ridge and Hampton Roads here today. Pea Ridge, A-class battle. Hampton Roads, B-class battle. We got a Union win in one of them and an inconclusive in the other. So, best the Confederates can hope for in this one today, I guess. Battle of Pea Ridge, March 7th through the 8th, 1862, also known as the Battle of Elkhorn Tavern, took place near Leetown, which is northeast of Fayetteville, Arkansas. Union forces in Missouri during the latter part of 1861 and early 1862 had pushed the Confederate Missouri State Guard under Sterling Price out of the state, which we've already covered. By spring of 1862, Federal Brigadier General Samuel R. Curtis determined to pursue the Confederates into Arkansas with his Army of the Southwest. Curtis moved his approximately 10,250 soldiers and 50 artillery pieces into Benton County, Arkansas, and along Little Sugar Creek. He said, "I'm ready for battle, bitches."
Battle, bitches. Federal forces consisted primarily of soldiers, from Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, and Ohio. Over half the Union soldiers were German immigrants.
Wow.
Grouped into the 1st and 2nd Divisions, which were under the command of Brigadier General Franz Seigel, a German immigrant who had expected to command the army forces into Arkansas. Upon learning that General Curtis was appointed in command, Sigel threatened to resign. The predominantly native-born regiments were assigned to the 3rd and 4th Divisions in order to create an ethnic balance between
segregation
among divisions and their commanders.
Look at that.
They're
like, we don't want to work with those Germans. We know what they're going to do in 80 years.
Crazy bastards.
Would it be, about 80 years.
40, 60.
41, 61. 80 years exactly, due to the length of Curtis's...
World War One.
We don't have that on count.
World War One don't count.
Well, no, because they didn't kill 6 million people.
Right, not then.
Due to the length of Curtis's supply lines and a lack of reinforcements needed for a further advance, Curtis decided to remain in position. He fortified an excellent defensive line on the north side of the creek, placing artillery for an expected Confederate assault from the south. Obviously, that's where they were coming from. I wouldn't expect a Confederate assault coming from the north, but Confederate Major General Earl Van Dorn had been appointed as the overall commander of the Trans-Mississippi District to quell a simmering conflict between the Confederate General Sterling Price of the Missouri and Benjamin McCulloch of Texas.
Okay, look at that. Van Dorn's Trans-Mississippi District totaled approximately 16,000 men.
Oh, wow.
Which included 800 Indian troops, Price's Missouri State Guard contingents, and other Missouri units, and McCulloch's contingent of cavalry, infantry, and artillery from Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Missouri. Van Dorn was aware of the federal movements into Arkansas was intent on destroying Curtis's Army of the Southwest and reopening the gateway into Missouri.
He's thinking he's going to be a hero here. Right. He's like, I'm going to be the one to reopen the gateway here.
Guys, all that time we've wasted, and we could have just done this in the first place.
But he intended to flank Curtis and attack his rear, forcing Curtis to retreat north or be encircled and destroyed. Van Dorn had ordered his army to travel light, so each soldier carried only 3 days' rations, 40 rounds of ammunition, and a blanket.
Are they stupid?
Is he expecting to just go in there and rout these guys?
I think so, bud.
40 rounds of ammunition?
Mm-hmm.
East Division was allowed an ammunition train. Oh, okay. And an additional day of rations. Okay. Other supplies, including tents and cooking utensils, were to be left behind. Right. Sleeping on the ground at night, baby.
Hey.
Well, at least they had an ammunition train, I guess.
Right. 4th of March, 1862. Instead of attacking Curtis' position head-on, Van Dorn split his army into 2 divisions under Price and McCulloch, ordering a march north along Bentonville Detour to get behind Curtis and cut his lines of communications. For speed, Van Dorn left his supply trains behind, which proved a crucial decision.
Yeah.
Yes. Amid a freezing storm, the Confederates made a 3-day forced march from Fayetteville through Elm Springs and Osage Springs to Bentonville, arriving stretched out along the road, hungry and tired. Idiots. This guy had the right idea. He just didn't
plan.
Well, he didn't execute that idea correctly.
Warned by scouts and Arkansas Unionists, Curtis rapidly concentrated his outlying units behind Little Sugar Creek, placing William Van Dever's 700-man brigade, who marched 42 miles in 16 hours from Huntsville to Little Sugar Creek. But Curtis's right flank also suffered from Sigel's having sent a 360-man task force to the west, where they would miss the next 3 days of fighting. Sigel also withdrew a cavalry patrol from the road on which the Confederate Army was advancing. However, Colonel Frederick Schaefer of the 2nd Missouri Infantry, on his own initiative, extended his patrols to cover the gap. Look at you, good for you, right, Frederick.
Jeez.
When Van Dorn's advance guard blundered into one of these patrols near Elm Springs, the Federals were alerted. Still, Sigel was so slow in evacuating Bentonville that his rear guard was nearly snared by Van Dorn on March 6th as he advanced. Still had to evacuate, though. Wasn't good enough. Dude's got 16,000 men, pretty much.
All right, waiting until the Confederates' advance was nearly upon him. Sigel ordered his 600 men and 6 guns to fall back on a road leading northeast toward Curtis's position. The Confederate 1st Missouri Cavalry, led by Elijah Gates, attacked from the south to cut off Sigel's retreat. They managed to surprise and capture a company of the 36th Illinois, but many were freed when Sigel's withdrawing men unexpectedly bumped into them. Sigel managed to fight his way through Gates's men, helped by a blunder by Confederate Brigadier General James M. McIntosh.
Oh, what did he do? Well, he had planned to envelop Sigel's force from the northwest, while Gates closed the trap on the south. However, McIntosh mistakenly took his 3,000-man cavalry brigade too far up a northerly road. After marching 3 miles out of his way, he turned his troopers onto the road leading east into the Little Sugar Creek Valley. By the time they reached the site where Sigel's northeast road met McIntosh's eastbound road, the Federal general's men had already passed the intersection, thus avoiding a disaster. When the 3rd Texas Cavalry charged, they ran smack into Sigel's main line. Confederates lost 10 killed and about 20 wounded to Federal artillery and rifle fire, and the Union position held the position right there.
Yeah.
They said, "Yeah, you bitches." How do you just march 3 miles off?
What the hell's going? Both people on this are kind of funky.
Ran into him mistakenly, so.
Curtis placed his 4 small divisions astride the Telegraph or Wire Road in a fortified position atop the bluffs north of Little Sugar Creek. From the creek, Telegraph Road went northeast at Elkhorn Tavern, where it is intersected by the Huntsville Road leading east and the Ford Road leading west. From Elkhorn, the Wire Road continued north and down into Cross Timber Hollow before crossing the border into Missouri. From there, the Federal supply line followed Telegraph Road northeast to St. Louis. The hamlet of Leetown lay northwest of the Telegraph Road, about halfway between Curtis' position on the bluffs and Ford Road. Curtis made his headquarters at Pratt's Store, located on the Wire Road between Elkhorn. Why is it like we're looking at a fucking map?
So you're going to go 3 miles west and turn west on Wire Road?
So yeah, they're going along Telegraph line.
Telegraph Road. Van Dorn sought the Federal rear via the Bentonville detour. This ran from Camp Stevens, west of Curtis's position, northeast onto the Pea Ridge Plateau. At 12 Corner Church, which still stands today, Ford Road branched east to Elkhorn. The detour continued northeast, meeting the Wire Road just north of Cross Timber Hollow, south of the Bentonville detour. West of Cross Timber Hollow and north of Ford Road lay the militarily impassable Big Mountain.
Okay, so this.
Well, I guess I guess if you wanted to map it out on a map for yourself, you know what to do.
On the night of the 6th of March, 1862, Colonel Grenville Dodge, with Curtis's approval, led several parties to obstruct the Bentonville detour, felling trees on the road between 12 Corner Church and Cross Timber Hollow. That same evening, Van Dorn's army, Price's division leading, began the long march across Timber Hollow. The night march was slowed by clearing Dodge's obstructions.
Yeah. It's like running away from the Scream guy and throwing dressers and shit in his way.
Van Dorn's lack of an engineer corps, poor staff work, and soldiers' exhaustion.
Yeah, exhaustion. Normally we go through all their army stuff, but there's literally so many for each side. I'm not going through all that. We'll name most of them in the upcoming anyways. There's too many. It's too many for these big battles.
Right.
They got everybody. Just put it that way. Van Dorn had planned for both of his divisions to reach Cross Timber Hollow, but by dawn, only the head of the Price's divisions had made it that far.
Oh, gee.
Because of the delay, Van Dorn instructed McCulloch's division to take the Ford Road from 12 Corner Church and meet Price at Elkhorn. That morning, Federal patrols detached both threats. Or detected both threats, my bad. Not knowing where the Confederate main body was located, Curtis sent Dodge's brigade of Colonel Eugene Carr's 4th Division northeast up to Wire Road to join the 24th Missouri Infantry at Elkhorn Tavern.
Okay. But Dodge, still worried about the threat to the Federal rear, had disobeyed orders and pulled his brigade back to Pratt's Store, available to immediately reinforce Elkhorn. Curtis also sent a task force under Colonel Peter J. Osterhaus, that's a hell of a name, north to reconnoiter along Ford Road. Osterhaus' force consisted of Colonel Nicholas Grusel's brigade of his own 1st Division, several cavalry units led by Colonel Cyrus Busey, and 12 cannons.
All right, so we got people disobeying orders on the Federal side here.
Is that Gary's family? No, Gary's just one ass, huh?
Yeah. McCulloch's force consisted of a cavalry brigade under Brigadier General James McIntosh, an infantry brigade under Colonel Lewis Hebert, and a combined force of Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole cavalry under Brigadier General Albert Pike. McCulloch's troops swung west on the Ford Road and plowed into elements of the Federal Army at a small village named Leetown, where a fierce firefight erupted.
11:30 a.m., Osterhaus rode north through a belt of timber onto Forrest Foster Farm, witnessed an astonishing sight. McCulloch's entire division was marching east on the Ford Road, only a few hundred yards away. Dang. Despite the odds, Osterhaus ordered Bussey's small force to attack to buy time for his infantry brigade to deploy. Go kill yourselves while we catch up.
Right.
3 Federal cannon began shelling the Southerners, killing at least 10. McCulloch wheeled McIntosh's 3,000 horsemen to the south to attack.
The massed Confederate charge overwhelmed Bussey's force, stampeding them and capturing the cannons.
Oh, shit.
A little further west, 2 companies of the 3rd Iowa ran into a Cherokee ambush and were similarly routed. Iowa's unit's unusual killed-to-wounded ratio was 24 killed and 17 wounded, suggests that Native American warriors killed a number of wounded Northerners. Yeah, so they were on the ground already wounded savages. Some, perhaps all, of Trimble's wounded Lowens were murdered and at least 8 were scalped.
Oh, jeez. Look at a little picture of the battlefield there. Just imagine thousands of people 100 yards away from each other.
Just fire and smoke everywhere, dude.
Stupidity.
Couldn't even probably see each other.
See, these isn't that like in sports? If they would have played back in my day.
Right.
You imagine, if they would have fought war back in my day. South of the belt of timber lay Oberson's Field, where Grusel had time to form his brigade and 9 cannons on the forest edge on the south side. Saul Ross alertly led the 6th Texas Cavalry into pursuit of Bussey's force. But when Ross rode into the field, his men were fired on, and it quickly fell back. Whoa! Well, look at what we just jumped into here, boys. Grusel shook out 2 companies of skirmishers from the 36th Illinois and posted them along the southern edge of the belt of timber between Oberson's and Foster's Field. So he's kind of like hopefully like a shield.
Federal gunners began lobbing shells over the belt of timber. Though the howitzers were fired blindly, their first shell burst panicked the Cherokees, who rapidly retreated and could not be rallied. They're like, fuck you guys.
I ain't rallying these guys.
Meanwhile, McCulloch had formed Louis Hebert's 4,000-man infantry brigade across a wide front and sent them south. Hebert took control of the 4 regiments east of the north-south Leetown Road, while McCulloch took charge of the 4 regiments west of the road. The Texan general rode forward into the belt of timber to personally reconnoiter the Federal positions, and coming into range of the Illinois skirmishers was shot through the heart, dude. McCulloch gone.
McIntosh was notified after a delay that he was in command, but his staff, fearing that the death of their popular leader would dishearten his soldiers, made the unwise decision not to share the bad news with many of the subordinate officers.
Yeah, why would they not do that?
Without consulting Hebert or anyone else, McIntosh impulsively led his former regiment, the dismounted 2nd Arkansas Mountain Rifles Regiment, into the attack.
How are you going to be called the 2nd Arkansas Mounted Rifles, but be dismounted?
Now we're dismounted right now. As the unit reached the southern edge of the belt of timber, it was met with a massed volley from Grusel's brigade, and McIntosh dropped dead.
Jeez, dude. That's McCulloch and McIntosh gone. Wow. That's both their leaders.
Done.
Jeez, in the meantime, unaware that he was now in command of the division, Hebert led the left wing of the attack south into the woods. Meanwhile, the colonels of the right-wing regiments withdrew to await orders from Hebert, and he don't even know he's in charge, though.
Right.
It was about 2 p.m. The blind Federal bombardment of Foster's Farm and the breakdown in the Confederate command structure began to destroy the morale of McCulloch's division. Yeah,
right. I don't know what the hell's going on. Hebert's powerful attack was stopped in the nick of time by Colonel Jefferson C. Davis and the 3rd Division, Dave was originally destined for Elkhorn, but Curtis diverted his troops to Leetown after Osterhaus report reached him. The 4th Southern Regiment nearly overran Davis's lead in brigade under Colonel Julius White. Davis ordered a cavalry battalion to charge, but this effort was easily routed by the Southern infantry. When Colonel Thomas Patterson's brigade arrived, Davis sent them up a forest trail to envelope Habert's open left flank.
Untroubled by the inert Confederate units on Foster's farm, Osterhaus was able to box in Habert's right flank. After very hard fighting in dense woods, the Confederates pressed from 3 sides were driven back to the Ford Road. In the smoky confusion, Habert and a small party, having become separated from the rest of the left wing, blundered through a gap in the Federal lines and got lost in the woods.
Oh, shit.
Later that day, a Federal cavalry unit captured Habert and his group. So all 3 of the leaders, 2 got killed and 1 got captured, dude. This is turmoil for the
2 got lost in the woods.
Jeez.
Oh, my goodness.
Turmoil.
Right. At this point, command of McCulloch's division would normally have devolved upon Colonel Elkanah Greer, the commander of the 3rd Texas Cavalry Regiment. But due to the prevailing command confusion, he was not notified of his superior officers' deaths or capture for several hours.
Jeez.
In the meantime, Brigadier General Elbert Pike, technically outside the chain of command of McCulloch's division, assumed command on the Leetown battlefield around 3 o'clock that day, 3:30 p.m., even as Habert was still battling in the woods. No, he was walking.
Right.
Pike decided to lead the regiments nearest to him in a retreat back to 12 Corners Church.
He's like, screw this, dude.
All right.
This movement took place in total confusion. Yeah, apparently, several units being left behind on the field. Oh, jeez. Some marching back towards Camp Stevens, others around Big Mountain towards Van Dorn and the rest of the army. At least 1 regiment was at this point ordered to discard its arms and bury them for later recovery.
Oh, my.
It was only several hours later that Greer assumed command of the remaining forces and was at that point informed of Pike's actions. Initially, he considered remaining on the battlefield, but after consulting with Van Dorn, decided to withdraw his forces as well and join the remainder of the army and cross Timber Hollow. Yeah, you better get the hell out of there, dude.
What a mess. This is just terrible. How the war lasted for 4 years.
I know.
Jeez. Around 9:30 a.m., Cernal's Cavalry Battalion and Price's advance guard bumped into a company of the 24th Missouri Volunteer Infantry, crossed Timber Hollow. Soon after, Carr arrived at Elkhorn Tavern with Dodge's brigade right behind him. Carr spread out his regiments facing north along the edge of the plateau near the tavern and pulled the 24th Missouri back to the cover the left flank at the base of the Big Mouth Mountain. Carr spread out his regiments facing north along the edge of the plateau near the tavern and pulled the 24th Missouri back to cover their left flank at the base of the Big Mountain. The 4th Division commander then sent the 1st Iowa Battery's 4 guns forward to slow the Confederates' advance. Let's do it. Slow that advance.
Slow them up. At this point, Van Dorn, instead of rushing Carr's badly outnumbered force with all 5,000 of his available soldiers, became cautious and ordered Price to fully deploy his division with the Missouri State Guard divisions on the right and the Confederate Missouri brigades on the left. When the northern guns began firing, Van Dorn ordered his own artillery into action. Soon, 21 southern guns were pounding the Iowa cannoneers. By the time Price's infantry finally began edging uphill toward the Yankee guns, they met Carr's men advancing downhill in an aggressive counterstroke. The Confederate advance stalled near Elkhorn, but Price's left flank units were marching up Williams Hollow further to the east.
Okay.
It's not working out for the Confederates, dude.
No. Once this force reached the plateau, Carr's right flank would be turned. By 12:30 p.m., Carr's 2nd Brigade, Vandevers, arrived at Elkhorn. The Federal Division commander immediately launched this unit into a counterattack on Price's right flank. Superior members of Southerners eventually forced Vandever to pull back a short distance uphill. 2 p.m., Van Dorn found out that McCulloch's division would not be meeting Price's at Elkhorn. At this time, Henry Little, on his own initiative, waved his 1st Missouri Brigade forward, and the rebel advance began to roll uphill.
Well, it's kind of impossible for that to happen. You can't roll uphill.
Right.
These events finally convinced Van Dorn to take more aggressive action. Yeah, you're being a little bitch right now. Price was wounded, but remained in charge of his left wing, while Van Dorn took tactical control of the Confederate right wing. But more time was lost in reorganizing Price's division to attack.
Right.
Meanwhile, Curtis was rushing small units to Carr's assistance as quickly as he could. Carr himself was wounded 3 times, once in the ankle, once in the neck, once in the arm, but refused to leave the field. In 1894, he would be awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions this day. Good for him.
Yeah, good for that guy.
About 4:30 p.m., Price's left emerged from Williams Hollow and attacked, outflanking Carr's line. All right. Oh, what's the Price going to do here?
Okay, on the right, Dodge's brigade collapsed after putting up a terrific fight at Clemson's farm.
Or Clemens.
Right. On the left, and equally hard fighting, Vandever's men were steadily pushed back to the tavern and beyond. To see Buzz Lightyear.
That's got to be pissed off people that go to that tavern regularly. They can't even go to the tavern and drink tonight because they got a fucking war battle brewing.
In the center, Little led his men forward into the teeth of the Federal artillery. After being forced back from his position after position, Vandever's men finally halted a Confederate drive at Ruddock's Field, over a quarter-mile south of the tavern. There they were, joined by Dodge's men, part of Alexander S. Asboth's 2nd Division, and Curtis. At 6:30 p.m., Curtis launched a brief counterattack, but soon recalled his men back in the dark.
All right, well, we move on to the 8th of March here. Temperatures fell rapidly after dark, as they usually do in the wintertime, making a very uncomfortable night for the men of both armies. Remember, the Confederates don't even have, like, tents and shit.
All right, idiots.
Curtis called Davis's 3rd Division to Ruddock's Field during the night, when Davis arrived, he was put in line to the left of Carr. Sigel marched the 1st and 2nd Divisions in circles all night, but finally had them camped near Pratt's store. Asboth, who was wounded in the last action of the day, believed that the United States Army's position was hopeless and pressed Curtis several times during the night to retreat. No, why would you do that?
Right.
Though his army was now cut off from Missouri, Curtis refused to consider retreat and confidently predicted victory in the morning. We shall surmise in the morning.
I promise. By night march, a number of regiments and artillery batteries from McCulloch's division, led by Greer, reached Van Dorn via the Bentonville Detour and crossed Timber Hollow. Van Dorn was unaware that his supply train had been mistakenly ordered back to Camp Stevens during the previous afternoon and evening. In the morning, the Confederate reserve artillery ammunition would be hopelessly out of reach.
Why the hell would somebody order the ammunition train back? Wow, dude, what a bunch of fucking morons.
Right, I mean, this is just stupid. You guys might as well just stop. Stop what you're doing.
You guys should be the one thinking about retreats.
Right, stop what you're doing, go back and start over. Jeez.
You better quit the game. Don't save it. You start these missions. In the early morning, Sigel sent Osterhaus to scout the open prairie to the west of Elkhorn. The colonel discovered a knoll that promised to make an excellent artillery position and reported it to Sigel. Osterhaus also suggested that the 1st and 2nd Divisions simply march up the Telegraph Road and deploy on Davis's left, rather than retrace the route of the previous evening. Sigel agreed with his advice, and his wing was put into motion. In the meantime, Davis ordered an Illinois battery to fire a few salvos into the woods opposite his position. This provoked a sharp Confederate reaction. 3 Southern batteries opened fire, causing 2 Federal batteries to retreat, and Davis to pull his men out of the open and back into the woods.
Okay.
This was followed by a Confederate probe, which was quickly driven back. Okay.
Soon Sigel's men extended into a long line to the left of Davis. By 8 a.m., Asboth's division took its place on the far left. Then came Osterhaus, Davis, and then Carr, with the Federal line generally facing north. It was possibly the only time during the war an entire army was visibly deployed in one continuous line of battle from flank to flank.
See, like how it's depicted in most of the movies where they're just standing in a row. That really never happened.
Well, in Gettysburg it did.
It's possibly the only time during the war an entire army was visibly deployed in one continuous line of battle.
Yeah, but one continuous line, Gettysburg was behind, like, stacked.
I guess, but...
These guys were just in a
just a big ass line. They're playing Red Rover.
Right. Send that Rebo on over. Sigel now amassed 21 cannons on the open knoll to the west of Elkhorn. With Sigel in personal control, the Federal artillery began an extremely effective fire against the 12 Southern guns opposed to them. When the Confederate gunners pulled back under the deadly fire, Van Dorn ordered 2 batteries to take their place. Man, you still gotta have something there, man. That's your problem. You guys' artillery ain't holding them back. That's your main thing. Your troops are only for in case of necessary.
Well, yeah, the artillery is the one that does the most damage.
Jeez, guys, come on.
After one of the new batteries panicked and fled, Van Dorn put its commander under arrest.
Oh, jeez.
But the Southern commander was unable to counter Sigel's devastating fire. Why would, return fire from Confederate artillery was ineffective and few Federals were killed. With the opposing guns rendered nearly harmless, Sigel directed his gunners to fire into the woods at the Confederate infantry. Near the base of Big Mountain, the projectiles created a deadly combination of rock and shrapnel and wood splinters, driving the 2nd Missouri Brigade from its positions. I don't know who's quoting this, but it says, it was one of the few times in the Civil War when a preparatory artillery barrage effectively softened up an enemy position and paved the way for an infantry assault. So apparently artilleries didn't do that very good, did they?
During the bombardment, Sigel's infantry edged forward so that by 9:30 a.m., his divisions had executed a right wheel and face to the northeast. By this time, Van Dorn found that his reserve artillery ammunition was with the wagon train. Idiots. A 6-hour march away.
What in the hell is going on here?
Right. The Southern Command bitterly realized that he had no hope of victory and decided to retreat via Huntsville Road. He shouldn't have even been in the battle in the first place.
Whoever put Van Dorn in charge is a fucking idiot. This guy better not be in charge of anything anymore.
Or anybody that's around that area.
Right.
This route led east from the tavern, then turned south. With Price wounded but still in command of the rear guard, Van Dorn's army began to move toward the Huntsville Road in some confusion.
Some confusion. That's what they should call the Confederate Army from now on. The Confusion Army.
The confusion. Jeez.
At 10:30 a.m., Sigel sent his 2 divisions forward into the attack. On the far left, Asboff's regiments drove the 2nd Cherokee Mounted Rifles from the point of Big Mountain. Osterhaus was resisted by Little's 1st Missouri Brigade, and then soon Curtis ordered Davis to attack in the center. Not realizing that the Confederate Army was retreating past his right flank, Curtis held Carr's Mauled Division in position on the right. Van Dorn joined the retreat about 11 a.m. Sometime around noon, Sigel's soldiers met Davis's men near Elkhorn Tavern, and a great cry of victory was sent up. Victory! A number of Southerners were cut off and escaped up the Wire Road into Cross Timber Hollow.
Jeez. Terrible.
Battle's over, boys.
Yeah, this guy, you need to say your war is over, Sigel and Van Dorn.
Well, Sigel's the good guy.
I mean, yeah, Van Dorn and Price.
I would say McCulloch and McIntosh, but those motherfuckers are dead.
They did that themselves. They permanently put themselves out.
They're like, I'm tired of this shit.
Yeah. And it's too long to get home. From there, the infantry retraced their steps on the Bentonville Detour. Several batteries marched northeast into Missouri, then south through the Ozarks. Ooh, that's a terrible march. In the confusion, Curtis failed to understand that Van Dorn had escaped on the Huntsville Road.
Oh my gosh.
Jeez, are these guys confused too? Oh my. Thinking that Van Dorn had retreated via Cross Timber Hollow, he sent Sigel and some cavalry to pursue in that direction. Instead of taking the forces Curtis assigned for the pursuit, Sigel gathered both of his divisions and marched northeast toward Keatsville, Missouri.
What the fuck?
He's like, nah, I'm good. Near there, he requested that Curtis send him supply train at that place. I'm going forward, not backward, he says, remarked an annoyed Curtis to his staff. He's allowing his guys to do this, though?
Apparently.
And Sigel has enough balls to call for...
Hey, give me your supply train.
Yeah, need that supply train. Where you at?
Jeez.
I'm in Keatsville. What? No. March 9th, Sigel finally returned to the battlefield and admitted that the Southern main body had not retreated by way of Missouri.
Idiots, dude. Federal forces reported 203 killed, 980 wounded, and 201 missing for a total of 1,384 casualties. Of these, Carr's 4th Division lost 682, almost all in its action on the first day, and Davis's 3rd Division lost 344.
Wow.
Both Asboth and Carr were wounded but remained in the command of their divisions. Van Dorn reported his losses at 800 killed.
Dang.
Jeez, and wounded, with between 200 and 300 prisoners, but these are probably too low. The more recent estimate is that the Confederates suffered approximately 2,000 casualties in the Battle of Pea Ridge. These losses include a large proportion of senior officers.
Oh, man.
Jeez.
800 moited. That's the biggest yet.
Well, 800 total casualties. I'm assuming a lot more than 200 were killed for the Confederates, though.
I'd say 4. General McCulloch, McIntosh, William H. Slack were killed or mortally wounded. Huh?
William Y. Slack.
William Y. Slack were killed.
William Y. Slack.
Were killed and mortally wounded. Price was wounded. Among colonels, Habert was captured. Benjamin Rives was mortally wounded, with 2 other colonels captured and 1 wounded.
Jeez.
Separated from their train supply, Van Dorn's main body retreated through very sparsely settled country for a week, living off what little food they could take from the inhabitants. They finally reunited with their supply train south of the Boston Mountains. But thousands of Price's troops deserted and returned to Missouri.
No.
Pike, meanwhile, believing that the Confederate Army had been destroyed, returned to the Indian Territory. Then he thought the whole Confederate Army was done.
He's like gone, dude.
Forgot about General Lee and all those guys over there.
That army, obviously. Van Dorn refused to admit that he was defeated, but only failed in my intentions, he says. Oh, well, I guess with the defeat of Pea Ridge, the Confederates never again seriously threatened the state of Missouri. It was it right there, buds.
Yeah.
Within weeks, Van Dorn's army was transferred across the Mississippi River to bolster the Confederate Army of Tennessee, leaving Arkansas virtually defenseless. With his victory, Curtis sent some of his troops east of the Mississippi and proceeded with the remainder of his army to moved east into West Plains, Missouri. Then he turned south into undefended northeast Arkansas.
Oh, wow.
He had hopes of capturing Little Rock, but this proved impossible because of a lack of supplies and because guerrillas had cut his supply lines.
Oh.
Instead, following the approximate course of the White River, Curtis continued south and seized Helena, Arkansas on July 12th.
Okay.
Which I'm sure we'll get to.
Right. Curtis remained confident, exercised effective overall control of his outnumbered army through the 2 days of fighting. His army was outnumbered.
They were outnumbered, and he did a pretty damn good job of placing where they needed to be.
Right. He was well served by 3 of his 4 division commanders.
Right, those guys too, yeah.
Right. That was Osterhaus, Davis, and Carr. His brigade commanders, Dodge, Vandiver, and Grusso also performed well.
I hate to be the 4th Division commander that doesn't get mentioned in here.
Right. Sigel's generalship on the morning of March 8th was generally commended. However, his erratic behavior on the other occasions and his attempt to claim credit for the victory led to a rift with Curtis. Sigel soon transferred to a command in Virginia.
Yeah, you got to get him out of there. They ain't going to fight the whole time.
I think Sigel did more than what
Sigel did a lot, yeah.
more than what Curtis did.
And he ignored a lot of Curtis's orders, so Van Dorn ignored logistics and failed to control his army. Yes, he did. Van Dorn is terrible. He should have been kicked off right there. When McCulloch was killed, his division fell apart while Van Dorn absorbed himself in the tactical details of Price's fight. His staff lost contact with his wagon train at a critical moment and committed many other errors.
Stupid.
Of all the Southern officers, Henry Little showed the most ability, becoming the quote-unquote de facto commander of Price's division at the end of the battle. Yeah, I guess he had no choice.
Little seemed to be all right. Oh, Henry. The battlefield.
Hank. Hanky.
Hank. The battlefield at Pea Ridge is now Pea Ridge National Military Park, found in 1956. One of the best preserved Civil War battlefields.
Oh.
A reconstruction of Elkhorn Tavern, scene of the heaviest fighting, stands at the original location. Look at that. Nonetheless. The park also includes a 2.5-mile section of the Trail of Tears. Dang, that'd be badass.
That's going to lead us to the Battle of Hampton Roads, which is also referred to as the Battle of the Monitor and Merrimack. The Merrimack was rebuilt and renamed the CSS Virginia, or the Battle of the Ironclad. So we got some ironclads going at it today, boys. Naval battle fought over 2 days on March 8th through the 9th in 1862, and obviously in Hampton Roads, a roadstead in Virginia where the Elizabeth and Nansemond rivers meet the James River just before it enters Chesapeake Bay, adjacent to the city of Norfolk.
Okay.
The battle was part of the effort of the Confederacy to break the Union blockade, which had cut off Virginia's largest cities and major industrial centers, Norfolk and Richmond, from international trade, which we established with when they took Fort Henry and Fort Donelson. So, trying to undo some shit that just happened.
April 19th, 1861, shortly after the outbreak of hostilities at Charleston Harbor, President Abraham Lincoln proclaimed a blockade of ports in the succeeded states. April 27th, after Virginia and North Carolina had passed ordinance of succession, the blockade was extended to include their ports as well. Even before their extension, local troops seized the Norfolk area and threatened the Gosport Navy Yard in Portsmouth. The commandant there, Captain Charles S. Macaulay, though loyal to the Union, was immobilized by advice he received from his subordinate officers, most of whom were in favor of succession.
Yeah, they're like, don't you dare do anything, right? Macaulay.
You can't do nothing.
Although he had orders from the Union Secretary of Navy Gideon Wells to move his ships to northern ports, he refused to act until April 20th because he was smoking up some blunts when he gave orders to scuttle the ships in the yard and destroy its facilities. Oh, jeez. So he's on the south, apparently now. 9 ships were burned. Among them were the screw frigate USS Merrimack, One, which was the old frigate Cumberland, was towed away successfully. Merrimack burned only to the waterline, however, and her engines were more or less intact. Yeah, that's the problem with them burning in the water. The destruction of the naval yard was mostly ineffective. In particular, the large dry dock there was relatively undamaged and soon could be restored.
Okay.
Wait, so did this dude do it for the Union?
I think so.
Move his ships. He refused to act when he gave orders to scuttle the ships in the yard and destroy it. So he wanted to destroy the facility so Confederates couldn't use it.
Right. Without firing a shot, the advocates of secession had gained for the South its largest navy yard, as well as the hull and engines of what would be, in time, its most famous warship.
Right. Yeah, remember we talked about this in one of the early episodes.
It also seized more than 1,000 heavy guns, plus gun carriages and large quantities of gunpowder. Norfolk and its Navy Yard in Portsmouth, the Confederacy controlled the southern side of Hampton Road. To prevent Union warships from attacking the yard, the Confederates set up batteries at Sewell's Point and Craney Island, at the juncture of the Elizabeth River with the James. And we all know this because we've been through this before.
Sewell's Point is definitely a battle we've covered. The Union retained possession of Fort Monroe at Old Point Comfort on the Virginia Peninsula. They also held a small man-made island known as the Rip Raps on the far side of the channel opposite Fort Monroe, and on this island they completed another fort named Fort Wool. With Fort Monroe went control of the lower peninsula as far as Newport News. Forts Monroe and Wool gave the Union forces control of the entrance to the Hampton Roads. The blockade, initiated on April 30th, 1861, cut off Norfolk and Richmond from the sea almost completely.
Further to blockade, the Union Navy stationed some of its most powerful warships in the roadstead. There, they were under the shelter of the shore-based guns of Fort Monroe and the batteries at Hampton and Newport News, and out of the range of guns at Sewell's Point and Craney Island.
Okay.
For most of the first year of the war, the Confederacy could do little to oppose or dislodge them.
Yeah.
Can you imagine that? You guys are that far away from each other.
Oh, you can't even, it's just like
do
you're
nothing,
waving to each
right.
other, but still can't do anything.
Isn't that like North and South Korea or something?
Right on the demilitarized zone or whatever.
Right.
When steam propulsion began to be applied to the warships, naval constructors renewed their interest in armor for their vessels. Experiments had been tried with armor during the Crimean War in 1853 to 1856, just prior to the Civil War, and the British and French navies had each built armored ships and were planning to build others. I would assume so. In 1860, the French Navy commissioned La Gloire, I assume, the world's first ocean-going ironclad warship. Look at the French. Great Britain followed a year later with the HMS Warrior, the world's first armor-plated iron-hulled warship. The use of armor remained controversial, however, and the United States Navy was generally reluctant to embrace the new technology. How the hell is the use of armor controversial? Yeah, I don't think we should armor our ships. Idiots.
I thought it was too heavy and it'll sink.
Maybe,
When the
or you can carry as many people or supplies.
Right. When the Civil War broke out in 1861, Confederate Secretary of Navy Stephen R. Mallory was an early enthusiast for the advantages of armor. Of course, he should have been. As he looked upon it, the Confederacy could not match industrial North in numbers of ships at sea.
Oh, shit.
So they would have to compete by building vessels that individually outclassed those of the Union.
Which a lot of them were, as we've already discussed, way faster than them.
Right. Armor would provide the edge. Mallory gathered about himself a group of men who could put his vision into practice. Among them, John M. Brooke, John L. Porter, and William P. Williamson.
Billy P. Billison.
William P. Williamson.
When Mallory's men searched the South for factories that could build engines to drive the heavy ships that he wanted, they found no place to do it immediately. At the best facility, the Tredegar Iron Works in Richmond, building engines from scratch would take at least a year. Fuck it, do it. Who cares? Upon learning this, Williamson suggested taking the engines from the hulk of the Merrimack, recently raised from the bed of the Elizabeth River. That's a bed. His colleagues promptly accepted his suggestion and expanded it, proposing that the design of their project ironclad be adapted to the hull. Like, fuck it, might as well take the rest of what we got here and build onto it.
Right. Porter produced the revised plans, which were submitted to Mallory for approval. July 11th, 1861. The new design was accepted.
Why would you still not have rebuild the Merrimack, but still put engines in production?
Right.
At the same time. Stupid.
Right. The new design was accepted on the 11th of July, 1861, and the work began almost immediately. The burned-out hull was towed into the graving dock that the Union Navy had failed to destroy. During the subsequent conversion process, the plans developed further, incorporating an iron ram fitted to the prow.
Oh, shit.
I think that guy meant not to burn it down.
Probably.
That captain that was there. So that way he can...
He's like, I still like you guys, but I'm with the Union.
Orders here, and at least I can say I set it on fire.
Wonder if he got in trouble once they found out that they took the Merrimack.
Right. That sucks for him, huh? During the subsequent conversion process, the plans developed for the incorporating an iron ram fitted to the prow.
Oh, Iron Ram.
The remodeled ship's offense, in addition to the ram, consisted of 10 guns, 6 9-inch smoothbore Dahlgrens, 2 6.4-inch, and 2 7-inch Brook rifles.
Okay. Trial showed that the rifles firing solid shot would pierce up to 8 inches of armor plating. Whoa.
Dang.
Their Jadegger ironworks could produce both solid shot and shell, and since it was believed that Virginia would face only wooden ships, she was given only the explosive shell.
Right, I would too.
Right. The armor plating, originally meant to be 1 inch thick, was replaced by double plates, each 2 inches, backed by 24 inches of iron and pine. Whoa.
Damn.
The armor was pierced for 14 gun ports, 4 on each broadside, 3 forward, 3 aft.
That's a heavy-ass ship.
Fuck yeah. Revisions, together with the usual problems associated with the transportation system of the South, resulted in delays that pushed out the launch date until February 3rd of 1862, and she was not commissioned until February 17th, bearing the name CSS Virginia.
Nice.
Meet Virginia.
That it right there? No. Intelligence that Confederates were working to develop an ironclad caused consternation from the Union. But Secretary,
We're all constipated.
but Secretary of the Navy Gideon Wells waited for Congress to meet to request permission to consider building armored vessels. See, they're doing it the right way, man. You got to go Congress. Acts of war has to be
Right. Well, they're already in war, but they still have to get
approval.
right.
Congress gave the permission on August 3rd.
I would assume they
1861.
would.
Wells appointed a commission, which became known as the Ironclad Board, of 3 senior naval officers to choose among the designs that were submitted for consideration. The 3 men were Captains Joseph Smith, Hiram Paulding, and Commander Charles Henry Davis.
Right. Well, the board considered 17 designs. I thought it was just 3
Right.
among the designs.
Right.
The board considered 17 designs and chose to support 3. Hey, look at that. The first of the 3 to be completed, even though she was by far the most radical in design, was Swedish engineer and inventor John Ericsson's USS Monitor. The Monitor, which was built at Ericsson's yard on the East River in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, incorporated new and striking design features, the most significant of which were her armor and armament. Instead of the large numbers of guns of rather small bore that had characterized warships in the past, he opted for only 2 guns of large caliber. He wanted to use 15-inch guns, but had to settle for 11-inch
Whatever.
Dahlgren guns when the larger sizes were unavailable.
It's fine.
I mean, the other ships got a couple 11s, though.
Right.
12ers or something.
Well, these were mounted in a cylindrical turret, 20 feet in diameter, 9 feet high,
Jeez.
covered with iron 8-inch thick. The whole rotated on a central spindle.
Oh, so you can
All right.
spin around wherever you want. It's like a tank.
And was moved by a steam engine that could be controlled by 1 man. Erickson was afraid that using the full 30 pounds of black powder to fire the huge cannon would raise the risk of an explosion in the turret.
Yeah, you don't want that.
Right. He demanded that a charge of 15 pounds be used to lessen this possibility.
Good for him.
15 pounds out of how many? Figure 30? Yeah, half. Then you can go down or up from there.
Right.
As with Virginia, trials found that a full charge would pierce armored plate, a finding that would have affected the outcome of the battle. Oh.
Well, of course, but you don't want to risk
Right.
blowing your damn ship up,
Right.
though.
Right.
A serious flaw in the design was the pilot house from which the ship would be conned, a small structure forward of the turret on the main deck. Its presence meant that the guns could not fire directly forward,
Oh, geez.
and it was isolated from other activities on the ship. Despite the late start and the novelty of the construction, Monitor was actually completed a few days before her counterpart, Virginia, but the Confederates activated Virginia first. And as usual with the last battle, they got a bunch of orders of battle for both the Union and Confederate, most of which we'll learn once we come in. I'm not doing all 30 frickin' battalions and shit.
Holy shit. The Confederate chain of command was anomalous. Lieutenant Jones, who had directed much of the conversion of Merrimack to Virginia. He was disappointed when he was not named her captain.
Oh, poor guy.
Jones was retained aboard Virginia, but only as her executive officer. That was it. Ordinarily, the ship would have been led by a captain of the Confederate States Navy,
You think?
to be determined by the rigid seniority system that was in place. Secretary Mallory wanted the aggressive Franklin Buchanan, but at least 2 other captains had greater seniority and had applied for the post.
You know damn well a bunch of them were applying for that post.
You ain't getting.
Mallory evaded the issue by appointing Buchanan. He said, well, screw you guys. Head of the Office of Orders and Detail, flag officer in charge of the defenses of Norfolk and the James River. As such, he can control the movements of Virginia. Technically, therefore, the ship went into battle without a captain.
Oh, jeez.
Wait, evaded the issue by appointing Buchanan. Oh, so he wasn't even captain of the Virginia. He was just captain of the defenses of Norfolk and the James River.
Right.
Wow, okay. On the Union side, command of the North Atlantic Blockading Squadron was held by Flag Officer Louis M. Goldsborough. He had devised a plan for his frigates to engage the Virginia, hoping to trap her in their crossfire. In the event, his plan broke down completely when 4 of the ships ran aground, one of them intentionally, in the confined waters of the roadstead.
Wow. On the day of the battle, Goldsboro was absent, with the ships cooperating with Burnside expedition in North Carolina. In his absence, leadership fell to his second-in-command, Captain John Marston of USS Roanoke.
Oh, Marston.
As Roanoke was one of his ships that ran ground.
Captain John Marston. I wonder if Arthur's with him. Dutch.
Maybe. Marston was unable to materially influence the battle, and his participation is often disregarded.
Yeah.
Most accounts emphasize
emphasize
the contribution of the captain of Monitor, John L. Warden, to neglect of others.
Okay. The battle began when the large and unwieldy CSS Virginia steamed into Hampton Roads on the morning of March 8th, 1862. Captain Buchanan intended to attack as soon as possible.
Damn right.
Virginia was accompanied from her moorings on the Elizabeth River by Raleigh and Beaufort, and was joined at Hampton Roads by the James River Squadron, which consisted of the Patrick, the Henry, the Jamestown, and Teaser. When they were passing the Union batteries at Newport News, Patrick Henry is one boat. Sorry, guys.
Right.
Patrick Henry is temporarily disabled by a shot in her boiler that killed 4 of the crew. Jeez. After repairs, she returned and rejoined the others.
Nice. At this time,
I wouldn't be the one that wants to be in the boilers.
No. Again. At this time, the Navy. At this time, the Union Navy had 5 warships in the roadstead, in addition to several support vessels. The sloop of war Cumberland and frigate Congress were anchored in a channel near Newport News. The sail frigate St. Lawrence and the steam frigates Roanoke and Minnesota were near Fort Monroe, along with the store ship Brandywine. The latter 3 got underway as soon as they saw Virginia approaching, but all soon ran aground. Oh, wow. St. Lawrence and Roanoke took no further important part in the battle.
Like, all right.
That's it for you guys.
Virginia headed directly for the Union squadron. They're like, dude, they feel like Iron Man right now.
Right.
The battle opened when Union tug Zouave fired on the advancing enemy, and Beaufort replied. This preliminary skirmishing had no effect.
None.
Virginia did not open fire until she was within easy range of Cumberland.
Right.
Return fire from Cumberland and Congress bounced off the iron plates without penetrating.
Oh, geez.
Although later some of Cumberland's gunfire lightly damaged the Virginia, though.
Okay.
Virginia rammed Cumberland below the waterline, and she sank rapidly.
Oh, shit.
Gallantly fighting her guns as long as they were above water, according to Buchanan.
Oh, that's
so they
beautiful.
were
Right.
blasting as they could.
Hey, man. You got to do what you got to do. She took 120 seamen down with her.
Jeez.
Those wounded brought the casualty toward 150. Ramming Cumberland nearly resulted in the sinking of Virginia as well.
Oh.
Virginia's bow ram got stuck in the enemy's ship's hull, and as Cumberland listed and began to go down, she almost pulled Virginia under with her.
Shit.
Dang. At the time the vessels were locked, one of Cumberland's anchors was hanging directly above the foredeck of Virginia. Had it come loose, the 2 ships might have gone down together. Virginia broke free, though, however, her ram breaking off as she backed away.
No more ram for the Virginia. But,
Right.
geez, that anchor, somebody could have cut it down, and
Dude,
bam, Virginia would have been done.
Done. I think all that time to get that ship ready.
And then just the first act of anything it does is gone.
He took down a major ship.
Yeah, lost its ram, though. Buchanan next turned Virginia on to Congress. Seeing what had happened to Cumberland, Lieutenant Joseph B. Smith, captain of the Congress, ordered her ship grounded in shallow water. By this time, the James River Squadron, commanded by John Randolph Tucker, had arrived and joined Virginia in the attack on Congress. After an hour of unequal combat, the badly damaged Congress surrendered.
Oh, shit.
While the surviving crewmen of Congress were being ferried off the ship, a Union battery on the North Shore opened fire on the Virginia.
Oh, shit. In retaliation, Buchanan ordered Congress fired upon with hot shot, cannonballs heated red hot. Congress caught fire and burned throughout the rest of the day.
Damn. He was like, you want to fire at me? I'll burn your damn ship.
Right. Near midnight, the flames reached her magazine and she exploded and sank.
There she is.
Stern first. Personnel losses included 110 killed or missing and presumed drowned. Another 26 were wounded, of whom 10 died within days.
Jeez.
Although she had not suffered anything like the damage she had inflicted, Virginia was not completely unscathed.
Well, yeah, 'cause shots from the Cumberland, Congress, and Union troops ashore had riddled her smokestack, reducing her already low speed. Right. 2 of her guns were disabled and several armor plates had been loosened. Well, I mean, it's a good learning exercise, I guess. 2 of her crew were killed and more were wounded. One of the wounded was Captain... more were wounded.
And more. And others.
It could be just 3.
Jeez.
One of the wounded was Captain Buchanan himself, whose left thigh was pierced by a rifle shot. Meanwhile, the James River Squadron had turned its attention to the Minnesota, which had left Fort Monroe to join in the battle and had run aground itself.
Jeez,
Running aground.
Right. After Virginia had dealt with the surrender of Congress, she joined the James River Squadron despite her damage. Because of her deep draft and the falling tide, Virginia was unable to get close enough to be effective, and darkness prevented the rest of the squadron from aiming their guns to any effect. The attack was thereof suspended. Virginia left with the expectation of returning the next day and completing the task. She retreated into safety to Confederate-controlled waters off Sewell's Point for the night, but had killed 250 enemy sailors and had lost 2.
Only 2, wow. Meanwhile, the Union had lost 2 ships and 3 were aground. United States Navy's greatest defeat, and it would remain so until World War II caused panic in Washington.
Right.
As Lincoln's cabinet met to discuss the disaster, the frightened Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton, told the others that Virginia might attack East Coast cities. Oh, jeez. Fucking fear porn and everybody. And even shell the White House before the meeting ended.
Get out of here.
Wells assured his colleagues that they were safe as the ship could not traverse the Potomac, obviously. He added that the Union also had an ironclad and that it was headed to meet Virginia. Virginia.
Man. I can't wait to meet Virginia.
Oh, dude, 2 ironclads coming face to face for the first time here. Ooh, love it.
Well, she left her ram with us. She can't be very fucking tough. She took Cumberland and Congress too.
Minnesota and its whole damn crew.
Roanoke. I can't wait to meet Virginia. Anyhow, both sides used the time to prepare for the next day. Virginia put her wounded ashore and underwent temporary repairs. Captain Buchanan was among the wounded, so command on the second day fell to Executive Officer Lieutenant Catsby Ap Roger Jones. Jones proved to be no less aggressive than the man he replaced. He's got what he wanted anyway.
Right.
While Virginia was being prepared for renewal of battle, and while Congress was still ablaze, Monitor, commanded by Lieutenant John L. Warden, arrived in Hampton Roads.
Dude, you could just picture like a movie scene.
Right.
Everybody looking like, what is that?
What is that?
What is that?
What the hell's that?
What is that?
Star Wars.
Oh. The Union ironclad had been rushed to Hampton Roads in hopes of protecting the Union fleet and preventing Virginia from threatening Union cities.
Right.
Captain Warden was informed that his primary task was to protect Minnesota, so Monitor took up position near the grounded Minnesota and waited. All on board felt we had a friend that would stand by us in our hour of trial, wrote Captain Gershom Jock Van Brunt, who was Minnesota's commander, in his official report the day after the engagement.
Okay.
He said, we got a buddy system here in this river.
Well, the very next morning, dawn, March 9th, 1862.
Virginia don't even know that. She's about to face another Godzilla coming.
All right. Virginia left her anchorage at Sewell's Point and moved to attack Minnesota, still aground. She was followed by 3 ships of the James River Squadron. They found their course blocked, however, by the newly arrived Monitor. They're like, what the hell is this? At first, Jones believed the strange craft, which one Confederate sailor mocked as a cheese on a raft, to be a boiler being towed from the Minnesota, not realizing the nature of his opponent. It's like, what the hell is that?
Just trying to tow it out. Soon, however, it was apparent that he had no choice but to fight her. The first shot of the engagement was fired at Monitor by Virginia. The shot flew past Monitor and struck the Minnesota,
Oh, shit.
which answered with a broadside. This began what would be a lengthy engagement. Again, all hands were called to quarters, and when she approached within a mile of us, I opened upon her with my stern guns and made a signal to the Monitor to attack the enemy, Van Brunt added to his official report.
Jeez. Oh.
These guys.
After fighting for hours, mostly at close range, neither could overcome the other. The armor of the both ships proved adequate.
Nice.
In part, this was because each was handicapped in her offensive capabilities.
Right.
Buchanan in Virginia had not expected to fight another armored vessel, so his guns were supplied only with shell rather than armor-piercing shot. Damn you, Scuba Steve. Monitor's guns were used with standard service charge.
Yeah, if they would have done the
15-pounders.
they would have done the 30 pounds. They would have got
Right.
through.
Which was not strong enough to pierce the armor. Tests conducted after battle showed that the Dahlgren guns could be operated safely and efficiently with charges as much as 30 pounds.
Oh, now they know.
Now they know.
During the battle, acting master Louis N. Stoddard and officer Steimers.
Well, maybe safely, like you're shooting it here and there, but not when you're shooting that
Constantly.
many. Yeah, I don't believe that.
Well, maybe.
I don't believe that.
It's only 30 pounds.
It's a lot.
Yeah. During the battle, acting master Louis N. Stoddard and officer Steimers and Truscott were inside the gun turret, discussing the course of action, and while leaning against the turret's side, it took a direct hit. Oh. Knocked unconscious, Stoddard, who was replaced by Steimers, was taken below, where it took him an hour to regain consciousness.
Oh, shit.
Stoddard thus became the first man injured during the battle.
Okay.
The battle finally ceased when a shell from Virginia struck the pilot house of Monitor and exploded, driving fragments of paint and iron through the viewing slits into Warden's eyes, and a temporary blinding him.
Dang.
Jeez.
As no one else could see the command.
Right, why would you not have another guy that could back him up?
Right, as no one else could see to command the ship, Monitor was forced to draw off. The executive officer, Lieutenant Samuel Dana Green, took over, and Monitor returned to the fight.
Oh, there we go, nice.
In the period of the command confusion, however, the crew of Virginia believed that their opponent had withdrawn. Oh no. Although Minnesota was still aground, the falling tide meant that she was out of reach.
You ain't getting reached to her no more.
Furthermore, Virginia had suffered enough damage to require extensive repair anyhow.
I'm sure they were side by side. Convinced that a ship had won the day, Jones ordered her back to Norfolk. At about this time, Monitor returns and only to discover her opponent apparently giving up the fight. Geez, so now they both think they're retreating. Convinced that Virginia was quitting, with orders only to protect Minnesota and not to risk the ship unnecessarily, Green did not pursue. Oh, he should have went after it. Thus, each side misinterpreted the moves of the other, and as a result, each claimed victory.
Oh, no shit.
So I guess they were technically right, because both of them went away.
I would have to say the Confederate won that little battle there.
Yeah, Confederates did a lot of damage there.
Confederate Secretary of Navy Stephen Mallory wrote to Confederate President Davis of the action. He said, "The conduct of the officers and men of the squadron reflects unfading honor upon themselves and upon the Navy. The report will be read with deep interest, and its details will not fail to rouse the ardor and nerve the armors of our gallant seamen."
There we go.
It will be remembered that the Virginia was a novelty in naval architecture, wholly unlike any other ship that ever floated.
Well, except for the Monitor that literally was right there, but
They didn't know that.
of course he did.
Right now.
Of course he did.
Right.
He's doing this after the battle.
Right now. Right. But still, right. He still thinks it's better.
Oh, obviously.
That her heaviest guns were equal novelties in ordnance, and that her motive, power, and obedience to her helm were untried, and her officers and crew strangers comparatively to the ship and to each other, and yet, under all these disadvantages, the dashing courage and consummate professional ability of Flag Officer Buchanan and his associates achieved the most remarkable victory which naval annals record.
Bullshit, dude. You're such a blowhard fucking Stephen Mallory.
This guy.
In Washington, belief that Monitor had vanquished Virginia was so strong that Warden and his men were awarded the thanks of Congress. They said thank you. From Congress, it said resolved that the thanks of Congress and the American people are due and hereby tendered to Lieutenant J.L. Warden of the United States Navy and to the officers and men of the ironclad gunboat Monitor under his command for the skill and gallantry exhibited by them in the remarkable battle between the Monitor and the rebel ironclad Merrimack. Oh, so they're not even referring it to as the Virginia.
No.
It's still the Merrimack to them, huh? Of course it is, right?
During the 2-day engagement, USS Minnesota shot off 78 rounds of 10-inch solid shot, 67 rounds of 10-inch shells with 15-second fuse, 169 rounds of 9-inch solid shot,
Jeez.
189-inch shells with 15-second fuse, 35 8-inch shells with 15-second fuse, 5,567.5 pounds of service powder.
Jeez.
3 crew members, Alexander Winslow, Henry Smith, and Dennis Harrington, were killed during the battle and 16 were wounded. On the Monitor's crew, Quartermaster Peter Williams was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions.
Good for him. Virginia remained in dry dock for almost a month getting repairs for battle damage as well as minor modifications to improve her performance. Yeah, see, now they know, like, well, this happened. We should probably shore this up here. On April 4th, she was able to leave dry dock. Buchanan, still recovering from his wound, had hoped that Catesby Jones would be picked to succeed him, and most observers believe that Jones's performance during the battle was outstanding. Though. The seniority system for promotion in the Navy scuttled his chances, however.
Oh, jeez.
And the post went to the 67-year-old Commodore Josiah Tatnall III.
Okay.
Monitor, not severely damaged, remained on duty. Look at that, Monitor. And they're trying to say that the Virginia did fight for a whole day before Monitor got there, though.
Right.
So.
I don't know if the Virginia would have had its its bullets instead of shells. It might have took down the old Monitor. Like his antagonist Jones, Green was deemed too young to remain as captain. The day after the battle, he was replaced by Lieutenant Thomas Oliver Selfridge, Jr. 2 days later, Selfridge in turn relieved by Lieutenant William Nicholson Jeffers. By late March, the Union blockade fleet had been augmented by hastily refitted civilian ships, including the powerful SS Vanderbilt. Sounds like a powerful name, doesn't it? SS Vanderbilt. The SS Arago. The SS Illinois. And the SS Erickson. How come they call it the USS? These had been outfitted with rams and some iron plating. By late April, the new ironclads USRC E.A. Stevens and USS Galena had also joined the blockade.
Oh, goodness, some new ironclads. Each side considered how best to eliminate the threat posed by its opponent, and after Virginia returned, each side tried to goad the other into attacking under unfavorable circumstances. Both captains declined the opportunity to fight in waters not of their own choosing, obviously. Jeffers, in particular, was under positive orders not to risk his ship. Consequently, each vessel spent the next month in what amounted to posturing. There was, hey, bitch. Hey, bitch. Not only did the two ships not fight each other, neither ship ever fought again after March 9th. What? Really? Huh.
Well, the end came first for Virginia, because the blockade was unbroken. Norfolk was little strategic use to the Confederacy, and the preliminary plans were laid to move the ship up to the James River to the vicinity of Norfolk. Before adequate preparations could be made, the Confederate Army under Major General Benjamin Huger abandoned the city on the 9th of May without consulting anyone from the Navy. Virginia's draft was too great to permit her to pass up the river, which had a depth of only 18 feet.
Oh, jeez.
And then only under favorable circumstances. Oh, jeez.
She was trapped and could only be captured or sunk by the Union Navy. Rather than allow either, Tatnall decided to destroy his own ship.
Oh, jeez.
He had her towed down to Craney Island in Portsmouth, where the gang were taken ashore, and then she was set afire. She burned throughout the rest of the day and most of the following night. Shortly before dawn, the flames reached her magazine, and she kaboomed.
That's ridiculous. These idiots.
There it is, too, kaboomy.
These idiots.
I mean, you can't use it.
Wow.
They wanted to take it after the blockade was gone, but they surely ain't getting to the blockade, so what the fuck are you going to do?
Oh, Monitor, likewise, did not survive the year. She was ordered to Beaufort, North Carolina on Christmas Day to take part in the blockade there. While she was being towed down the coast, under the command of her fourth captain, Commander John P. Bankhead, the wind increased, and with its waves, with no high tides, the Monitor took on water. Right. With no high sides, the Monitor took on water.
Yeah, we saw it. It was like a damn sub, pretty much.
Right. Soon the water in the hold gained on the pumps and then put out the fires in her engines. The order was given to the abandoned ship. Most men were rescued by USS Rhode Island, but 16 went down with her when she sank in the early hours of December 31st, 1862. Happy fucking New Year.
Right, there's your New Year. The victory claims...
What's your New Year's resolution?
To die. The victory...
Sink with this shit.
The victory claims that were made by each side in the immediate aftermath of the battle, as both were based on misinterpretations of the opponent's behavior, have been dismissed by present-day historians. Okay. They agree that the result of the Monitor-Virginia encounter was not a victory for either side, obviously.
All right.
As the combat between ironclads was the primary significance of the battle, the general verdict is that the overall result was a draw.
Right.
All would acknowledge that the Southern fleet inflicted far more damage than it received, which would ordinarily imply that they had gained a tactical victory.
Right.
Compared to other Civil War battles, the loss of men and ships for the Union Navy would be considered a clear defeat. Yeah. On the other hand, the blockade was not seriously threatened, so the entire battle can be regarded as an assault that ultimately failed.
Right.
Nothing was accomplished there, but killed a few men. That was it.
Right. However, initially after the Battle of Hampton Roads, both Confederate and Union media claimed victory for their own sides.
Did.
Yeah, morale, man. A headline in Boston newspaper the day after the battle read, the Merrimack driven back by the steamer, implying a Union victory, while Confederate media focused on their original success against wooden ships.
Yeah, they didn't mention. They weren't going to mention the Monitor at all. They're like, we took out some wooden ships, though.
Yeah. Despite the battle ending in a stalemate, it was seen by both sides as an opportunity to raise wartime morale.
Of course.
Especially since the ironclad ships were an exciting naval innovation that intrigued citizens. Hey, they want to know that
they're working.
It's working, yeah.
The evaluation of strategic results is likewise disputed. The blockade was maintained, even strengthened, and Virginia was bottled up in Hampton Roads. Because of a decisive Confederate weapon was negated, some have concluded that the Union could claim a strategic victory. Confederate advocates can counter, however, by arguing that Virginia had a military significance larger than the blockade, which was only a small part of the war in Tidewater, Virginia. Her mere presence was sufficient to close the James River to federal incursions.
Okay.
Was it, though?
All right. She also imposed other constraints on the Peninsula Campaign, then being mounted by the Union Army under General George B. McClellan, who worried that she could interfere with his position on the New York River.
Or the York River.
Right. Although his fears were baseless, they continued to affect the movements of his army until Virginia was destroyed.
Yeah, so just the mere presence of the Virginia got these people all in their feelings.
Right. All in their feelings.
Both days of the battle attracted attention from almost all the world's navies. Oh, yeah, they're like, this is probably the first time two ironclads have come together.
All right, check this shit out.
U.S. Monitor became the prototype for the Monitor warship type.
Okay.
She thus became the first of two ships whose names were applied to entire classes of their successors, the other being the HMS, the Dreadnoughts.
Right.
Many more were built, including river monitors, and they played key roles in Civil War battles on the Mississippi and James Rivers coming up.
Okay.
The U.S. immediately started the construction of 10 more monitors. That's what the Union could do, dude.
Right.
Like, we'll just get 20 of these bitches out there. Based on Ericsson's original larger plan known as the Passaic class monitors. Yeah, they're like, we got it now. We already know. We need to make them a little higher, the deck a little higher up so they don't take on water and sink.
Right. And these ships are like a blessing in disguise for the United States, because without the Civil War there, they would still be behind everybody else, because nobody in the Union wanted to do it.
They didn't have no need to build them.
Right. They're like, we don't need that. And the South were like, shit, we're building one of those sons of bitches. And the North was like, damn, that's cool.
I guess we got to.
Right. And then, bam, look what it did. The vulnerability of wooden hulls to armored ships was noted particularly in Britain and France, where the wisdom of the planned conversion of the battle fleet to armor was given a powerful demonstration.
Yeah.
Another feature that was emulated was not so successful. Impressed by the ease with which Virginia had sunk Cumberland, naval architects began to incorporate rams into their hull designs. Why not? The first purpose-built ram in the modern era was the French armored ram Taureau, 1863. Whose guns were said to have the sole function of preparing the way for the ram. Nice. Should be able to shoot in front of her. The inclusion of the rams in warship hull design persisted almost to the outbreak of World War I.
Yeah, then they probably decided it's not wise just to go running full speed into a damn another ship. The name of the warship that served the Confederacy in the Battle of Hampton Roads has been a continuing source of confusion and some contention. She was originally a screw frigate in the United States Navy carrying the name USS Merrimack, obviously. All parties continued to use the name after her capture by secessionists while she was being rebuilt as an ironclad. When her conversion was almost complete, her name was officially changed to Virginia, right? Despite the official name change, Union accounts persisted in calling it Merrimack, while Confederates called it either Virginia or Merrimack without the K at the end.
They got to at least take a letter out.
Right. That's not how we roll.
The alliteration of Monitor and Merrimack has persuaded most popular accounts to adopt the familiar name, even when it's acknowledged to be technically incorrect. A CSS Merrimack did actually exist.
Without the K.
She was a paddle wheel steamer named for the victor, as most Southerners saw it at Hampton Roads. She was used for running the blockade until she was captured and taken into federal service, still named Merrimack. Her name was a spelling variant of the river, namesake of the USS Merrimack.
No shit.
Both spellings are still in use around the Hampton Roads area.
All right. It's just like Mackinac. Mackinac.
Right.
Small community in Montgomery County, Virginia, near the location where the iron for the Confederate ironclad was forged, is now known as Merrimack. Some of the iron mined there and used in the plating on the Confederate ironclad is displayed at the Norfolk Naval Shipyard in Portsmouth. Anchor of Virginia sits on the lawn in front of the Museum of Confederacy in Richmond. Oh, good for them. After resting undetected on the ocean floor for 111 years, the wreck of Monitor was located by a team of scientists in 1973. Well, that's cool. The remains of the ship were found upside down 16 miles off of Cape Hatteras on a relatively flat sandy bottom at a depth of about 240 feet. 87, the site was declared a National Marine Sanctuary, the first shipwreck to receive this distinction. Good for them. Not even, well, I guess you can't do that for the Titanic. They didn't even find that till the 80s anyways.
Right.
That's cool. I wonder if it's fully intact.
Right, and they got to have a way to at least bring it back up.
I don't think you can raise it after 111 years.
It'd be rough. Because of the Monitor's advanced station... Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
Because of the Monitor's advanced state of deterioration, time of the recovery remaining significant artifacts and ship components became critical.
Yeah.
Numerous fragile artifacts, including the innovative turret and its 2 Dahlgren guns, an anchor, a steam engine, propeller, have been recovered.
Nice.
They were transported back to Hampton Roads to the Mariners Museum in Newport News, Virginia.
Well, that would be cool.
Right. Where they were treated in special tanks to stabilize the metal. Nice. There's a report that it will take about 10 years for the metal to completely stabilize.
Wow.
The new USS Monitor Center at the Mariners Museum officially opened on the 9th of March 2007. You can go see that stabilized metal now. And a full-scale copy of US Monitor, their original recovery turret, and artifacts and related items are now on display.
Full-scale copy, so they got the whole ship there, dude.
Dang,
that's cool.
Badass.
The Battle of Hampton Roads was a significant event in both naval and Civil War history that has been detailed in many books, televised Civil War documentaries, and in film, to include TNT's 1991 film Ironclads.
Oh, let's check that out.
In New York City, where the designer of the Monitor, John Erickson, died in March of 1889, a statue was commissioned by the state to commemorate the battle between the Ironclads. The statue features a stylized male nude allegorical figure on water between 2 iron cleats. It is located in Messenger McGolrick Park.
Okay.
All right.
In Virginia, the state dedicated the Monitor Merrimack overlook at Anderson Park on a jetty that overlooks the site of the battle. The park contains several historical markers commemorating both ships. Also in 1992, Virginia dedicated the $400 million 4.6 mile long Monitor Merrimack Memorial Bridge Tunnel. Damn.
We're going to the M Bridge Tunnel.
Right. Which is located less than a mile from the site of the battle.
Good for them.
Wow. We got the movie Hearts in Bondage. 1936 came out. That is about both the USS Monitor, huh?
Tells the story of the building of it. And
it tells the story. Okay. 1991, made for television movie called Ironclads, we just said. The album The Monitor, the second studio album by New Jersey band Titus Andronicus, ends with a 14-minute track that references the battle.
Jeez.
In Canyonlands National Park, Utah, there are 2 buttes named after Monitor Merrimack. There is a viewpoint with a placard describing the significance of their names.
Cool.
Okay. Sleater Kinney recorded an indie rock song referencing the battle Ironclad on the album All Hands on Bad One. Nice. In 2000, the book The Virginia by Winston Brady, based on the Battle of Hampton Roads, depicts Captain Franklin Buchanan and John Warden as tragic heroes who are injured during the battle as a punishment for their overconfidence created by the powerful, indestructible ships they commanded.
Don't read that book.
No.
Guys.
In the novel The Claw of the Conciliator by Gene Wolfe, set in Earth's future, the narrator tells a story from a book of myths that conflates the battle with the legend of the CSS and the Minotaur. Okay.
And then we had our song called USS Monitor by Civil War, who was a band, apparently. Yeah, disregard all that. Maybe the only thing to see there is the Ironclads produced by TNT right there. That's going to do it for this episode. Probably a long one, a little over an hour for us today. That's 2 battles. That's what happens when you get Class A's and Class B's. You can't do 3-4 battles on one sitting, but that's okay with us because we ain't in no rush to get through this. But Battle of Pea Ridge, a Union win. Battle of Hampton Roads, technically a draw. And then got coming up, Battle of New Bern in North Carolina, a Class B battle. First Battle of Kernstown in Virginia, Class B battle. Battle of Fort Macon, North Carolina, Class C battle. That'll probably be our next episode. At least 2 of them. maybe 3. Then we have another major battle, Battle of Glorieta Pass in New Mexico. First A battle in New Mexico there. Got a lot of other stuff coming up down the road. And in a month's time, we got the Battle of Shiloh in Tennessee. Got lots of stuff coming up for us here. And all Union wins, pretty much. Confederates, like we said before, they don't get another win until April 15th at the Battle of Pachacho Pass. With that, we also do another show called Outlaws and Gunslingers, where it's kind of a true crime show, kind of like how this show is, except for we've done Wild West episodes, Wild Bill, Billy the Kid, all those famous guys in the Wild West, Prohibition figures. We've done gangs. We've done Unabomber, Oklahoma City Bomber, O.J. Simpson murder case. We've done many bank heist episodes, all that good stuff. Anything to do with true crime over there. Outlaws and Gunslingers, wherever you get your podcasts. And that's going to do it for us for this week. We'll be back next Friday with at least another 3 battles. We are the Mouth of Michiganders with
Bang, dang.